Hello there, welcome back to 0 to 60 Motoring once again. My name is Bill Siotori and today I'm going to give you a detailed and in-depth review of this Toyota MARK X GRX130 series. So if you've been looking for a MARK X review, you are on the right platform and on the right channel. I'm going to tell you many things about this car, bad and good things. So hang around until the end of this video, because this video is going to equip you with more knowledge about the Toyota MARK X GRX130 series. Before I do that, let me give you a little information about 0 to 60 Motoring. Now, 0 to 60 Motoring is a tried and tested platform that gives you trusted and unbiased car advice. We give you information that should make your car ownership journey easy. That is the goal of 0 to 60 Motoring. So if you want to purchase a car, you can actually shoot us a message or ring us on the number below. We are going to give you information about the car model and how it stacks up against the competition, what to expect in the car ownership journey. That is matters maintenance, reliability. So if you want to purchase a car, you can actually call us. We also scout for clean cars, we inspect them, and we hold your hand when it comes to the purchase process. All right, here we go. Toyota MARK X GRX130 series. Let's start with the basics as we try to build this review. What exactly is the Toyota MARK X? Now, the Toyota MARK X is a popular car that needs no introduction, but if you've been living under the rock, which is not a bad thing, the Toyota MARK X is a mid-size sedan that is produced by Toyota. Production started back in 2004, and it is actually, let me say, it took over from the Toyota MARK II Grande of that time. Now, the Toyota MARK X actually falls under it has two generations. The first generation is called the Toyota MARK X GRX120, and then the second generation, which is what I'll be reviewing today, it's called the GRX130. And the flavor I'm specifically reviewing today is the GRX135 series. If you're in the market for a Toyota MARK X, it won't hurt looking at the rivals or the alternatives or the substitutes. Now, when I'm looking at the body size of this car and the engine size, the competition, other players in this league will actually come up in the form of the Nissan Skyline. You have the likes of the Subaru Legacy, you have the likes of the Nissan Tiana, the likes of the Mazda Atenza, something like the Honda Accord, or even from the Toyota family, you can actually include something like the Toyota Camry, or even the Toyota Crown. That is if you can meet its price tag. So those are the cars that compete in this mid-size sedan, the mid-size sedan family. What are the engine options and the gearboxes found in the Toyota MARK X? There are actually two engine options most commonly, especially when I'm looking at our market. The first engine choice, which is the most popular and most common, is a 2.5 liter normally aspirated petrol V6. It's actually called the 4GR. That is the most popular engine. Now, the second engine, it is actually a 3.5 liter, also a V6. It's normally called the 2GR. Now, this 2.5 liter is actually normally aspirated or naturally aspirated, if you like, meaning it has no turbo, it has no supercharger. Actually, there is not even a hybrid assist in this car. Mostly, for this 2.5 liter V6, which is the derivative I'm driving, it is actually offered with a 6-speed automatic gearbox. There is no manual transmission for this 2.5 liter. Now, that 6-speed automatic transmission sends power, channels power to the rear wheels, which of course is the right way of distributing power. But then, this specific flavor I'm driving, actually power is transmitted to all the four wheels. That's why you'll be seeing I4 back on the trunk door. Basically, it's because this is an all-wheel drive variant, but mostly if you sample the market, you realize that primarily the MARK X is the rear wheel drive car. Even for this all-wheel drive variant, most of the power actually goes to the rear wheels. How does the Toyota MARK X drive? Up front, you have a 2.5 liter V6 paired to a 6-speed automatic gearbox, sending drive to the rear wheels, or all the wheels like for this specific flavor. But then in most applications, the power will only be sent to the rear wheels. which actually makes some good ingredient. If you want something that is fun to drive, I normally feel like a rear wheel drive sedan normally feels better to drive, because the car will actually tend to push me. It feels good to drive compared to a front wheel drive variant, front wheel drive car, but still it's not a bad thing if you go for the front wheel drive cars. In this case, something like the Atenza or even the Nissan Tiana. But for if you want something that is a rear wheel drive, the Toyota Mark X actually hacks that better. And I feel like when I'm looking at the driving dynamics on the road, it actually feels settled. It feels sure-footed on the road. It doesn't feel like it's going out of the road. But then when it has rained, and considering most applications will be rear wheel drive variants, you better watch out how you're gonna take corners, because sometimes it can actually skid. So meaning, because mostly the rear wheels are the ones that are spinning, the front wheels, which have the best grip, they are only having the steering assistance. It feels good driving the Toyota Mark X, because I feel like it has some sportish nature, but then this is not a performance car. The output for this 2.5 liter 4GR engine is rated at around 200 brake horsepower. I think that is the right figure. Going by those numbers, you actually realize that it's not a performance car. But when you're looking at the mid-size sedan family, considering the rivals that I've already mentioned, not many cars can actually get to the 200 brake horsepower mark. That means this car is actually faster than most of the competition. Actually, it's faster than a Mazda Atenza, it's faster than a Subaru Legacy, it's faster than a Nissan Tiana, it's actually faster than even the Honda Accord and the Toyota Camry. So that tells you how it has been tuned, because it has no turbo, it has no supercharger, but it's still faster than most of the cars in this segment. The only car that makes more than 200 horses in that class is the Nissan Fuga, or the smaller sibling, that is the Nissan Skyline. On the highway, this 2.5 liter V6 actually feels pretty solid. You actually have very good, let me say, you have a very good overtaking grunt, because currently I'm actually doing around 20 kilometers per hour, and the car is actually settled on the road. So when I'm looking at, if you want something that has, let me say, some push, and you want something in the mid-size sedan family, it won't hurt getting this Toyota Mark X GRX135 series. Even with the 250G, I feel like it's sufficient enough for day-to-day living, because if you want something that has fireworks, the 350G will be a better bet, but that thing will actually guzzle more fuel. So the 250G is actually better for normal day-to-day operations, because most of the power will be going to the rear wheels. I feel like this car actually handles on the road better than most of the competition, because mostly the steering wheel assist is on the front wheels, and then the driven wheels are the rear ones. So the car will actually feel like it's pushing you, and that is one of the ingredients that makes a car drive better. That's why I was saying initially, in this car, power is distributed to the right wheels. Of course, there is a liability that comes about when you are driving a rear wheel drive car. The first liability is that sometimes if you are not careful, you can actually skid around corners, and then because most of the grip is at the rear wheels, there is a popular joke that goes around. People normally say that if you attend a function and then you park this car on wet grass, chances are that you are going to get stuck. Sadly, let me confirm that that is true. But if you don't want to be affected by that, you can actually purchase an all-wheel drive flavor, something that we have done, for example, for this specific car. Now, there is no harm actually getting a rear-wheel drive car, especially if you live in good places where the roads are good. But if you know that the roads you are using are bad, a rear-wheel drive car actually will be a liability. Now, another element where a rear-wheel drive car will be a liability. Now, when I'm looking at this car, compared to something like a Nissan Tiana or the Mazda Atenza, which are front-wheel drive cars, primarily or mostly they are front-wheel drive cars, fuel consumption of rear-wheel drive cars versus the front-wheel drive cars is normally, rear-wheel cars actually tend to consume more, because it's pretty simple from a basic physics. When you're looking at the driveline power losses from the front here to the rear wheels and at the drive shaft, you realize that a rear-wheel drive car will actually have more mechanical components. So basically, that's why this car is going to guzzle more fuel compared to the Nissan Tiana or the Mazda Atenza, which are front-wheel drive cars, basically whereby the engine is nearer to the wheels. There is less power losses, and then you actually have less mechanical components. Speaking of fuel economy, fuel consumption, I've been getting like 10.4 kilometers per liter with this 2013 Toyota MARK X GRX135 all-wheel drive. So basically for a 2.5 liter V6 all-wheel drive, I think any figure above 10 kilometers per liter is pretty okay from my standpoint. But then previously I've played with a couple of GRX130 series or 120 series. Normally my figure is normally below 10, but for this one I've actually tried to drive it gently. I've actually put in all the ways to drive it very well. But sometimes when I push this car under sports mode, the figure can actually drop to something like 9.5 kilometers per liter, which is still okay considering under sports mode the revs tend to be somewhat higher. Of course, I've had people say that they can average like 12 kilometers per liter, but I think that one is somewhat ambitious unless you have actually a very light foot. And then with a 2.5 liter V6 petrol rear wheel drive car, if you can actually manage to get like 12 kilometers per liter, then you must actually be doing pretty fine. So is the Toyota MARK X reliable? Now Toyota have mastered the art of keeping things simple. So what do I mean? These are MARK X engine, these are 2.5 liter, which is normally called the 4GR. It has actually been applied in the MARK X from around 2004, and this thing is actually idiot proof and foolproof. Basically it means you actually have to struggle much to kill this engine because it's actually a very simple engine to live with. The 4GR engine is actually amongst the most reliable engines in the mid-size sedan family. It's very simple to maintain. Basically it's big, natural aspirated. When I say natural aspirated, it is unstressed because there is no hybrid here, there is no turbocharger here, there is not even a supercharger, and that actually is one of the ingredients that makes this engine pretty simple. The reason I was saying this engine is foolproof and idiot proof, basically this engine by normal maintenance it should not skip a bit because there is not much here apart from maintaining the oil levels. Considering that the Toyota MARK X actually has a 6-speed automatic gearbox, unlike something like the Subaru Ligas and the Nissan Terrano, which actually come with a CVT gearbox, that actually makes this car very simple to live with in terms of reliability, in terms of maintenance, because for a CVT gearbox there are things you should do and there are things you should not do with that gearbox. But for a conventional automatic gearbox, it's very simple to live with. Bulletproof reliability. I've seen a GRX130 series with a mileage of around 280 kilometers. For myself, I've actually driven a GRX120 series with 350,000 kilometers. So basically that tells you with good maintenance, these things should actually click or rake in over 350,000 kilometers without necessarily skipping a bit. So reliability is actually one of the biggest strengths of the Toyota MARK X. So how does the MARK X GRX130 look like when it comes to the design? Now for this GRX130 series, it actually received a minor facelift in 2012, which actually made this grille somewhat small, and then they introduced the new lights with this ring, which you can actually confuse for daytime running lights. Now going up to 2016, in 2016 they also made some minor facelift, which of course includes the design of the fog lights. So that's why you'll be seeing that because this is a 2013 car, you'll be seeing that it will be somewhat different from the 2015, especially on how the fog lights look like. This facelift was actually given between 2012 late 13 and 14 and 15 versions. So for the earlier versions, they will actually also be somewhat different. So that is how this car looks like in terms of design. There is not much to talk actually about the design of this car. Now from the side profile, this is actually a base model, or you can call it a standard version. That's why actually it will be coming with these 16-inch alloy rims. But if you step up to the premium trim, there is a premium trim which is a trim higher than this. It can actually come with a 18-inch alloy rims, which actually look pretty good. But then with the 18-inch alloy rims, they normally come with a low profile. So if you normally use roads that are not good, these 16-inch rims are the best because you can actually have them with these high profile tires. Now even on the rear side of this MARK X, there is not much to talk about because you only have this MARK X badge here, and then because these are an all-wheel drive variant, that's why you'll be seeing these four. So if you see a MARK X with this badge, it means actually it's a four-wheel drive, or it's an all-wheel drive to be precise. The 250G badge here of course tells you that you have a 2.5 liter 4GR engine. Of course the 350 GT and the 350G in the GS variants will actually be denoting a 3.5 liter V6. Even the facelift was also done on the rear side of this car, because the tail lights here from 2012 to around 2015 they are somewhat slim and different from what we'll be finding in maybe 2009 up to 2011, because the 2009 to 2011 they are big and the lighting pattern is somewhat circular. Now, how does the MARK X fare around in terms of practicality, that is in terms of space? Let's find out. Now, in terms of a space, the MARK X actually gives you, let me say, some generous amount of space, because this amount of room here can actually swallow your briefcases without much problems. And then for this car you can actually store a full size spare wheel down here, and that actually it will fit pretty well as long as you remove this plastic cover here. The MARK X is actually pretty accommodative, because you have actually a very generous amount of knee room, as you can see, because these seats are actually electronically adjusted. The amount of room is actually pretty decent. Even the amount of headroom is good, and finding your driving position will actually be easy. Now, in terms of styling, in terms of the cabin styling, there is not much to talk about this car, because it may actually, let me say, it's basic, boring thing to look at. Basically, it could actually be the worst in the class. These are the standard version. We don't have a cruise control, but at least we have a reverse camera. We have a sports mode, snow mode, eco mode. Basically, that is how the interior crafting of this car looks like. So if features are your thing and aesthetics, I think that you should look elsewhere, or at least you should step up to the premium versions, because at least for them they'll come with actually half leather seats. There is also an option of getting a sunroof, cruise control. The infotainment screen will actually also be pretty, it may actually be better, because this one, for the standard version, there is not much actually that has been incorporated inside here. So that is how I will actually judge this cabin. Should you buy the Toyota MARK X GRX130 series? When I'm looking at this Toyota MARK X GRX130 series, I'm looking at one of the most reliable cars in the class. Basically, because of the simple engineering of the 4GR engine, the reliability of the gearbox, which actually has been tried and tested over a long time. When you're looking at parts availability, this car will be sharing majority of its components with the cars like the Toyota Crown, so it's actually pretty easy getting its parts. It is a car that will actually survive, let me say, if you give it a basic treatment in terms of service, you do all the just the basics, it is something that is not going to skip a bit. And when I'm looking at the performance element, still this car actually is a better performer than most cars in the class. Those are the good sides of this car. When I'm looking at the bad sides of this car, the fuel economy of this car may actually be somewhat on the higher side compared to rivals. That is in case you find 10 kilometers per liter somewhat thirsty, because the rivals they can actually do better than 10 kilometers per liter. So if you find 10 kilometers per liter a little bit high, you better look elsewhere. And then, because Toyota tried to keep things simple in terms of design, even for the premium versions, while this is the standard version, even for the premium versions, there's not much to talk about those cars in terms of the interior crafting. It actually has let me say, it lacks the quality that actually can make it be called a premium sedan, while it sits in this mid-size sedan family. So the interior crafting may be somewhat basic. So if you want something that has more appealing looks, you better look elsewhere, because this is not the right car for you in terms of let me say, specifications and the features. Another thing that may be a downside, but then that is actually pretty common with many sedans, is that the ground clearance of this car may be somewhat low, but that is also an advantage when it comes to handling, because sitting pretty low means a lower COG and better handling on the road, meaning low body roll. Basically, those are the main strengths and downsides of this Toyota MARK X GRX130 series. I think I've given you a little bit of information about this Toyota MARK X GRX130 in terms of engine flavors, dependability, fuel economy, how it handles on the road, practicality and reliability. That information can actually help you shape up your decision if you wanted to purchase this Toyota MARK X GRX130. If you want a detailed comparison of how this car stacks up against the Subaru Legacy, the Nissan Skyline and something like the Nissan Tiana, you can actually check a detailed comprehensive review of this car and the comparison on our Facebook page. That is a 0 to 60 motoring. I guess that is enough for today. Alright guys, bye for now. I'll see you on the next one on 0 to 60 motoring.